So this is the original program, and you are given the fact that A is the leg, B is the leg, and C is the hypotenuse. Because of that, you can form this equation, and it would return true if it is a right angle, because then it would follow the Pythagorean theorem. Right? You got a squared plus b squared equals c squared, or otherwise minus c squared. And we put this little inequality here because of floating point error, right? Because this could have a very small fractional error at the end because of the way that the computer performs the math calculations. So anyways, this if statement returns true if it's a right angle, right? And so now the problem that we need to solve is, what about if we don't know which of the A, B, or C's arguments that are coming in are legs, or if they're the hypotenuse, right? Because when we calculate this Boolean expression here, C must be the hypotenuse in order for this equation to work. So, but if we don't know if A, B, or C are the hypotenuse, we need to first determine that, right? So what we can do is we can have an if statement to make a decision, and we could say if A is greater than B and A is greater than C, then we know that A is a hypotenuse, right? But we need to store that hypotenuse somewhere. We need to save it somewhere. So we're going to come up here and say hypotenuse equal to 0. It doesn't equal to 0, but we're just going to set it equal to 0 for now. And once this is true, we're going to set the hypotenuse equal to A. And we'll go ahead and do that again for this same expression, except we're going to be using B here, and we'll be comparing it with A and B and comparing it with C. And then if this is true, then we're going to set the hypotenuse to B. Right? And then of course we're going to do the last one, which is going to be else if C is greater than A and C is greater than B, and if that's true, then we're going to set the hypotenuse to C. Okay. Now by this time, by line 10, we know where what the hypotenuse is. It is in the variable h, right? So we're going to put that right here, h. But we don't know what the leg 1 and the leg 2 are, okay? Because if the hypotenuse is A, then that means that the legs are B and C. If the hypotenuse happens to be B, then we know the legs are A and C. And if the hypotenuse is C, then we know the legs are A and B. So because of this if statement that chooses the hypotenuse, we don't know what the legs are. Okay, so that's why we need to make a couple of variables that will hold the legs, right? So he'll be leg 1 equals 0. It's not equal to 0, but we're just going to be setting it to 0 in the beginning. And leg 2, right? Now if this is the case, then we're going to say leg 1 is equal to B and leg 2 is equal to C. Right? And if this is the case, then we can say leg 1 is equal to A and leg 2 is equal to C. And then if the last one is the case, then we can say leg 1 is equal to A and leg 2 is equal to B. Okay, so now that we have the hypotenuse and the two legs definitely saved in these three variables at the end of this if statement, so by the time we're here on line 18, we have everything we need. We have leg 1 contains one of the legs, leg 2 contains the other leg, and the h variable contains the hypotenuse, right, which we determined by using these this if-else branch. So now that we're here, we could just put leg 1 right here and leg 2 right here and hypotenuse right there, and now this function will let you know if it's a right angle, regardless of if the hypotenuse is A or B or C, right? Because we have this branch here that checks and sets our variables equal to the hypotenuse and the legs.